I hated school. I hated being in that chair. I hated being in that room, and I couldn't do what they wanted me to do. And like, I didn't, even with the medication, even with any of that, it was a misery to me, and it blows my mind that any kid can. It's a real hell. I mean, you go from being a kid who has all the freedom in the world, kids are naturally curious, and I was that way. And then you bring them to a room and you tell someone with more energy than you can even fathom as an adult that they need to sit. No, they need to sit for 8 hours. Wow, what a hell to go from total freedom to now I'm just in this room.
It almost felt like jail, it sounds.
Yeah, it felt like jail, and it is like jail. You're not free as a child. You go to this room. This is where you go. And then all through high school and then even through college, they tell you they're preparing you for the real world, I guess. But they didn't prepare me for my world. I'm very successful.
Welcome to Successful with ADHD. I'm Brooke Schnittman. Let's get started. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Successful with ADHD. Today, we have Justin Pasha. He is the CEO and founder of The Cupbearer, acknowledged by peers and professionals as the world's most influential cocktail catering company. He has ADHD, and the ironic thing about all of this is he doesn't drink. So,
Yeah.
but he does a great job entertaining and presenting, and it's worldwide. So, Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then we'll get into your ADHD journey.
Sure. Well, Brooke, thank you so much for having me today. I'm very excited to share my journey and where we came from and how we got to where we are right now, and the exciting story of the Cupbearer, which is my baby. It's a company I founded almost 10 years ago now. We've grown to be a serious entity in the event space and really pioneered a lot of what you're seeing now a lot more of, which is mobile bars and cocktail catering, at least here in the United States. The Cupbearer, we provide these over the top and incredible experiences, all beverage related for off premise. You saw almost 20 years ago now, sort of like a revival or a cocktail renaissance, in bars and restaurants, fine bars and restaurants around the country. About 10 years ago, I identified a blank spot in that, which was that, weddings, corporate events, private events in venues, really we're doing things the old way. The new school approach, which was craft cocktails, and we applied that to off-premise and catering, grown to the point where we now have an operation in not only here in New York, but also in Miami, and we do events worldwide. So, and it's just an amazing, beautiful journey and exciting company. Everyone that works for us is a family, and we have so much fun doing what we do, creating these over-the-top experiences, working with the most talented mixologists and flair bartenders from around the world now, creating these incredible concoctions and just it's a party and it's a blast, and I love what I do every single day.
So your life is one big party, huh?
Something like that. Something like that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. For sure. I mean, it's nightlife, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love how you were and are a visionary, and so many of us with ADHD are, and you trusted your gut and you said, I'm going to take this to the next level and create something that doesn't exist. I'm sure there were a lot of trials and tribulations doing it, but here you are successful in what you do and you enjoy it, and you're worldwide, not just in the US. So you also have ADHD, and so many individuals with ADHD are entrepreneurs. So tell me about when you got diagnosed with ADHD. What got you to get diagnosed? Do you remember?
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, we're gonna have to take it far back because I was a small formal diagnosis came in first grade. So this was at the time when they were, it was new. I'm 34 years old now. So at that time I was just 6 years old, into kindergarten. In any case, I guess I couldn't pay attention. I couldn't stay still. I couldn't do whatever it was that they needed the 5-year-olds to do in the room. They said, oh, maybe he has ADD. They sent me to a doctor and they put me on amphetamines like the next day. So I've been on medication since about 6 years old.
It's a long time.
They diagnosed me, and yeah, and then I was in resource rooms, and they were always just trying to, put my square peg into the round hole, and that's just
Mm,
how it went. I mean, I was talking in full sentences by the age of 1 years old. I was walking,
wow.
I was walking early, very early. I was advanced by all other metrics cognitively until public school, and then suddenly there's something wrong with me, and you know, medication, medication, Ritalin, Dexedrine, Adderall, Vyvanse, and I'm still on it to this day. So there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. Cognitively, you were so advanced for a first grader. And for those of you listening here, please know that ADHD has nothing to do with intelligence. In fact, a lot of people with ADHD are either of average IQ to above average. But I heard it in your story right away, Justin, that they wanted you to fit in the way that the school was doing it. And then it almost seems, and I'm not knocking the school district because I worked in it and we've come a long way since you and I were in first grade, but
Hmm.
you were in a resource room, but you were intelligent. So I'm curious, if they were working on executive function skills, like what was the point of them putting you in resource room? Do you even know?
Um, no, I mean, they want you to do things the way the other kids are doing them. They want you to be able to sit there. They want you to be able to listen to what they're doing. And if you're fidgeting or you're moving around or you're not paying attention, then you're a distraction, I guess, to the other kids. And so they just put you in another room. And that's what they did. And I mean, there was me, and then there was usually, a handful of kids with serious cognitive disabilities in there, right? And there was maybe one or two resource teachers, and they were just kind of babysitting us. And she would sit there. I mean, I was in resource rooms like that all the way through high school. But I think
Mm,
early on, I remember there would be just a woman, there sitting right next to me and just like trying to teach it to me and move your, okay, this is what we're doing. It's just like someone sitting with me the whole time trying to get me to
focus.
focus on whatever it was that they wanted to do. And then I never did any homework. And that was that way through high school. I was very social, and I still am to this day. And I mean, in high school, I won like all of the social superlatives. And, I was always very popular and just a social person,
Hmm.
but I couldn't, I hated school. I hated being in that chair. I hated being in that room, and I couldn't
Sure.
do what they wanted me to do. And like, I didn't, even with the medication, even with any of that, it was a misery to me, and it blows my mind that any kid can, you know what I mean? Like, it's a real hell. I mean, you go from being a kid who has all the freedom in the world, kids are naturally curious, they're not learning, they're learning everything. They're constantly soaking up everything, and I was that way. And then you bring them to a room and you tell someone with more energy than you can even fathom as an adult that they need to sit. No, they need to sit for 8 hours. It's outrageous, and like it's sad, and it's really, and I felt that, I guess I was depressed early on too. Like, wow, what a hell to go from total freedom to now I'm just in this room.
It almost felt like jail, it sounds.
Yeah, I felt like jail, and it is like jail. You can't go anywhere. You're not free. You're not free as a child. You go to this room. This is where you go. And then all
Yeah.
through high school, and then even through college, they tell you like that they're preparing you for the real world, I guess. But they didn't prepare me for my world. My world is very real, and I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do, and I'm very successful. And there was never a moment where they even talked about an entrepreneurial choice or lifestyle that, you could lead. It was always this worker bee, can you hack it kind of
Yeah.
training. And it doesn't work for everybody. And I think that, I mean, and I'm not even so sure what ADD is. I mean, I know that right now I'm very dependent on the medication. And I have always been, but I don't know what I would have become if they hadn't put my mind on heavy doses of amphetamines at such an early developmental age, and then consistently kept me on them for my entire life. So right now I'm a vegetable without my medication.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that you shared, we work with students, parents, and adults, and the mentality very often, or the misconception is that someone with ADHD or someone with a disability needs the full gamut of accommodations and services. But that's not true. Yes, you want to level the playing field for your student and as a student, but you don't necessarily need to throw everything in because look at what you're sharing right now. You have this negative experience of people trying to fit you into so bad with these references, square peg into a round hole.
Hmm.
And you knew that you were smart. You just didn't do it the same way. You never did homework. It's probably because you already knew what you were doing. You did have some executive dysfunction, and you felt smarter than the material that they were providing to you. So it felt like a waste of your time, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, I think the topics that I was interested in, I was very interested in, and I loved them, and I could have, pursued them endlessly, but they weren't necessarily anything that I was being taught in school, right? So, or maybe they were at times, but if I was interested in them, I wasn't interested to do it in their way. Like, okay, now you go home and you repeat this step, you do this all night, or, I look back and I think like, what the hell? Why were they teaching us that? That's just so stupid.
Right. Like, why didn't they teach you entrepreneurship? Why didn't they teach you life skills? Those kind of things.
Like 6 months, like on the Oregon Trail. Like what?
I
Why? Like,
remember that.
but like
I
really,
remember
really,
that.
but like really, why? Like
Right.
it, that's really this kid here, like this bright kid who's has the ability to learn so much and soak up so much, and like that's what you teach them. There's not this like there's so much interesting things out there. There's ways that you can teach things that can be interesting.
Totally.
You bring this child to sit somewhere for 8 hours in a day, and then you want them to go home, and then you want them to do more work at home. Give them like a 30 minutes to like play outside a day, and then you use that as like a
Yeah, it's so backwards.
you use that as like a cudgel that you can hit them with when they're not doing what they need. You can take it away from them, right? When they didn't do what you're not sitting still, then you have to sit inside for your recess. You don't get to go outside because you weren't well behaved during class.
Which is the worst, right? Which is the worst punishment, because people with ADHD need that to
Yeah.
get their energy out, to thrive, to focus. So you're taking away
Mm-hmm.
physical activity. They're not going to do any better afterwards. And in fact, it's going to be a
Yeah.
negative disruptor and
Mm-hmm.
behavioral issue. But
So how is that not like prison? Like, sorry to
right,
interrupt you, but like you said before, I wouldn't have made that analogy, but like, how is it not like prison? That's what happens in prison. You don't do what they want you to do, and they take away your rec time in the yard or whatever. They take away your other privileges. It's like, it's this constant like game. It's like, be like the other kids, the kids that did so well in school. I mean, good for them, but it wasn't for everybody. And again, I don't think like my wife, for instance, she was an amazing student and loved school. She's incredible at what she does, but she loved school, right? It worked for her. She
the
didn't
school
mind
was
sitting
made for
still.
her.
It was made for her, and there need to be other. You said that medications and whatnot. It's important to level the playing field, but what I would say to that is that there need to be at least two types of playing fields. I don't need the other person's playing field leveled for me. I would just like my own playing field, right? Where things are constructed and configured in such a way that I can do what I need to do and I can learn in the way that I'm able to learn.
I really appreciate that. You're a 34-year-old adult, right? And you still have this pain
Hmm.
that you're harboring from when you were
Yeah.
in school. And that
Hmm.
is going to be with you for a very long time. So, for
Hmm.
those of you listening out here, I will say, because I was a special education teacher and administrator, schools have come a long way and there is differentiation. So, to your point, we need your own playing field rather than leveling the playing field. We differentiate based on strengths. But now you take 25, 30 kids in a class and try to do that with one teacher. It's a lot of work, right? So for you, if you were to go back to school today and relive your childhood, what they have in some schools that have more resources, they have integrated co-teaching where they have the special education teacher, which I was, and the general education teacher in the class, and you could group people and you could teach to the learning style, and you wouldn't look any
Hmm.
different than the general education kids. So
Yeah.
for someone to your intelligence, perhaps resource room wouldn't be the right thing for you, especially because of the social piece.
Yeah. Well, I said resource room, but I mean, maybe I wasn't clear there. I wasn't in the resource room all day long. So my school, I grew up in Fairfield, Connecticut, which is a very affluent town. And we did have in the classrooms that I was in, the resource teacher or one of the resource teaching aides was always in the room. So I would go for a period of the day, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that might be, an hour or so to the resource room where I would just be in that room. But then I would be in regular class with the rest of the students for the rest of the day. And there would just be a resource teacher in there.
Yeah, but they weren't involved in the planning with the teacher, so they weren't looked at as a teacher.
Maybe not, probably not. No, they were just the aide in the room. And it's challenging for teachers because this is the thing is like there are types of learners like me, and then there are the learners that can learn. But people like me don't go to teach in schools. people like the kids who did really well go to teach in schools. People that loved school so much that they decided, I want to work in a school for the rest of my life. You know,
That's
for
not
me,
true. That's not true. I did not love I did not love school and I was a teacher. A lot of
no,
ADHDers are teachers because they care about people and they want to give back and be, set a difference. But for you, it was really, something that drove you to go the opposite way and say, I'm going to follow my own rules. I'm going to do
yeah,
things my own way. And look how successful you are. So, what I
yeah.
would like to highlight for the listeners, if it's okay with you, is like, what was that moment for you that you realized I need to work for myself?
It came much later. I went to school in Boston. I mean, it took me a long time. I graduated high school with like a 1.5 GPA by the skin of my teeth. And I went to community college for a while in Connecticut. And I went to community college in Boston. My best friend was going to BU, so I moved down there and went to community. And then I transferred to a regular college where I studied hospitality. And I was working in restaurants from like age 15. And then I worked in really nice restaurants in Boston. And I kind of got the idea around that time that I wanted to be in hospitality in some capacity. And I really thought that that was going to be owning a bar or owning a restaurant or just maybe being a GM of a restaurant or something like that. I thought I wanted to be in
Mm-hmm.
hospitality. So I went to school for that college. And then I dropped out of college at some point. And uh, I wasn't getting good grades and I just hated being in school. And I said, do I need to stick around in college if I want to work in restaurants? Like, I don't think that matters. So I dropped out. So I moved back home and I got a job in Connecticut, started to support my parents and contribute. And then I began to work as a bartending instructor because I was already a bartender for some time. And around that time, I had some free time. There was a desk in front of me. My wheels started spinning and I thought, what if I were to, create a mobile bar, right? I wanted to own a restaurant. I thought that was my path. But I realized like the barrier to entry to owning a restaurant or starting a restaurant is so high. You need millions of dollars to do it properly. And I had done some catering in Boston and I knew what the best version of bar catering was. And I thought, I've worked in now craft and mixology for a long time. I thought, well, I know I can do better than that tomorrow and I don't need a lot of money to do that. I just, so I decided I was going to do it and I decided I wanted to try it because the risk was pretty low, right? I had about $800 and that's what my total initial investment was.
Wow.
I knew what the catering bartenders were and they sucked and they were just like the worst. And I thought, well, I'm an amazing bartender. I've been doing this a long time, a really good bartender, mixologist. And at that time, you hadn't really seen clear ice anywhere. But I think I saw it in the Gatsby movie that had come out that they were cracking ice from a block of ice. And I thought, wow, that is so cool. Why don't we see that anywhere? So I learned how to freeze blocks of clear ice in a cooler, igloo cooler, slowly, and in a freezer that I got for free on Craigslist. And
Wow.
I would freeze these big blocks of ice slowly over 3 days, and then I would dump the block out, and I would saw off the white part, so I'd have all this clear ice at the bottom, and then I'd saw that into individual ice cubes, and then some quart containers and odds and ends.
Very
But
resourceful.
yeah, and a handful of bar tools, beautiful bar tools, copper. I thought I'd get beautiful copper tools and that would be like my signature. So I had this copper bar tools, beautiful hardwood bar with this crystal clear ice and these great cocktails with fresh juice for the first time. And everyone was using sour mix out of bottles. It was real ingredients, real bartender, real bar. One of my friends' parents, my family didn't have money, but my friend's family did. And she said, why don't you come and set the bar up at this tailgate at this country club? There's a polo match happening. Just set the bar up. I did that for free. I set the bar up, and these rich people saw me, and they started to hire me for their parties. And
Wow.
you know, then we just went crazy from there. And now we have 30 staff, and
Wow.
10 mobile bars, and you know, more stuff than we can count. Yeah.
So, for those of you out there listening who want to make it, right, you don't have to go big right away. You can have $800 in your bank account and start small, use your resources that you have and see where you go with it. And
Hmm.
that's exactly what you did. And you, I'm sure, hustled a lot
Oh,
and just
crazy.
stayed persistent.
You can't be afraid of failure, in the same way, and I think that I was primed pretty well after a lifetime of really failures, right? Once a month you get that report card and it just says that you're not a winner, every time. So I had a high opinion of myself in certain aspects. I was confident in my social abilities, but like I didn't really have a high ability to win or to execute or to succeed. I didn't have a what you would call like a good chart of success, in my past that made me feel like I couldn't fail. No, I could fail. I was okay to fail. I've always failed. If I fail at this, then that's not going to make me feel any certain kind of way, and I mean, I was fired from, I must have worked in 20 restaurants. I counted it one time. I was almost, I think it was 17, and I was fired from all of them except for two. All of them,
Wow.
just for being late or just for a million different reasons, but like just not being a good employee. I wasn't a good like I wasn't a good student. I'm not good at doing anything else. And I loved the restaurants and the people that I worked with. They all loved me. The managers were always sad when they had to let me go.
So what is the difference then? You have your own company. Are you on time? Are you you're still obviously passionate about what you do?
Yes. Well, I mean, when it's yours, it's different, right? It's different when it's yours because it's failing at it when it's yours feels different because no one's forcing you to be there. No one's forcing you to do this thing, right? I don't pick to do anything that I don't want to do. I don't move in any direction that's not interesting to me. And the cupbearer might even be more successful if I was able to focus on things that weren't interesting to me. And I didn't for the longest time. I didn't do my taxes until way, way later, until I could hire someone to do them. And all the things that scare people away from starting a business, these things, how could I do that? How can I do this? You just don't do those things.
Right. You delegate.
Don't do the things you don't like until you have enough money that you can pay someone to do those things. And that's what I did.
100%. Ugh.
And by never doing for a minute anything I didn't want to do, I was successful because I was harnessing the strongest part of me, which is the creative part and the parts of me that make me special. The parts of you that make you special are the parts of you that are interested in things, the parts of you that love a thing. And then when you love something and you're interested in it, you never feel like you're working, right? And it's cliche to say that, but like if you want to start a business, you better be prepared to work 100 hours a week, right? But those 100
Oh
hours,
yeah.
if you're doing the right thing, are not going to feel like work, right? Because you're interested, because you blink and the day goes by and you were just in the zone, obsessing over a detail, excited over something. You know what I mean? And it doesn't feel like work. You have to be able to scan a million Instagram profiles looking for the right person, the right connection.
Yes.
You have to be, and it's the sort of thing like if the amount of time I put into social media and Instagram in the early days, if I was being paid to do that for a company, like you'd be just miserable, miserable. You'd be miserable. You'd be miserable. It's not work for yourself. And you can't obsess over the
You're
details.
helping someone else.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't obsess over the details of someone else's baby like you can obsess over your own baby, right? To take care of someone else's child is a chore, is a job. To take care of your child doesn't feel like work, right? So that's what it is to own a business. And it's so important that you're passionate about. And I had never experienced that in my life. I had enjoyed outdoorsy things, working with some wood, doing things like that, where I would do things and the time would fly. But everything else was work. And this wasn't suddenly for me. And I found that I learned about myself the first time in my life. I started to have confidence in a way that I didn't have. The kind of confidence that kids probably had growing up when they got good grades. Proud of myself. I was proud of myself for the first time in my life. And I had something to be proud for. And that feeling is still novel to me and it's very exciting. I wish that for everybody. If they can get it in school, great. If they can get it from their job, great. If they can get it owning their own business, even better.
Yeah, there's no right way of getting that feeling, right?
No.
Everyone has their own paths, like you said.
Yeah.
Whether you do well in school or you support your family and then create a business where you're supporting yourself, your wife, and your family. I mean, look at all you've accomplished, right? So it's amazing that you found your way, and people find their way at all different times throughout their life. I have 50, 60-year-olds coming to me saying they want to change professions, careers, and that's okay. I have 20-year
Yeah.
olds saying, I found what I wanted to do. Great. Everyone has their own path, their own time. And I love that you share that you don't have to be the best student. You don't have to get straight A's to be successful.
It wasn't like I opened a pizza shop. There's a blueprint for that. No one had done what I had done until that point. And so there was maybe a big market for it out there, but there was no demand at all. No one was requesting or Googling luxury cocktail catering companies because, it didn't exist. So we had to build the demand and the awareness. But yeah, it was really hard. So I don't know if it was a great idea or not. but it was something I was excited about. So forget whether or not it's a great idea, but if it's something that you're excited about, that makes it a good idea. Because I was excited about it, I was going to be able to black out and
Be
put
obsessed
those
with it.
crazy hours into it. Exactly. I thought it was a good idea. So that's all that mattered. Whether or not it was a good idea or not, it didn't matter. And what I didn't do is I didn't listen to anybody else. Only recently did anybody think it was a good idea. It really had to become very successful before anyone thought it was a good idea.
But at the same time, the risk reward was not that big for you because you had an $800. I mean, I don't know what $800 meant to you at the time, but you put $800 in,
Yeah,
you hustled hard, and you figured it out because you were obsessed with it and excited about it. So my
absolutely.
question for you is how did you, besides working and being persistent, how did you create the interest for something that people didn't see the need for?
I paid myself in the beginning, and I think as an entrepreneur, you have to pay yourself with the small wins because you're not going to be paying yourself with money for a long time. So, that first day that went and I did that event with the tailgate at the Westport Hunt Club, and I saw these wealthy people, their eyes light up and their curiosity get really piqued, and they thought it was valuable. That's when I stopped caring about what anyone else thought.
Mm.
That was the proof of concept that I needed, right?
So you knew your avatar at that point.
I wouldn't see money for years, real money. But when I saw that first wealthy person like this, say, this is cool, this is exciting, I knew that these people, that there would be more like them out there. I just knew it. You just have to know that if the people that might conceivably hire you are going to be in that room, then do it. Otherwise, you don't do it, right? And so I would take on all these charity type events, where, oh, do you want, and it would be a lot of wealthy people in the room. And that's how I got in front of
Yes.
them, and I worked for free, night after night for free, set this whole bar up, saw this ice by hand, go in there and break your back for free, carry all the equipment in
Yes.
off of your pickup truck, park the pickup truck down the road so they don't see your beat up pickup truck, and carry this heavy ass bar of 2 blocks, do all this shit because and then I would get in front of them, and then I would do one of those
You got
events,
your
and
name out.
that's it. One person calls you, and then two people call you from their party, and then word spreads, and then slowly you do that, and then slowly those charity events or those promotional events, they become bigger. It's a bigger scale, and now you're doing events like that in front of 300 people at a polo club or at an event in the city, and you're just constantly doing that, and it's a lot of free events, and then you're getting some paid events, and I still bartended for a year or two.
Right. You were working as a contractor within your business. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that this is such an important message for people who are starting businesses. On social media, it looks like you can get a rich, quick, like tip out there, right? So many people be saying, oh, I made $1 million overnight doing X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm sorry,
Hmm.
unless you win the lottery, you have to work really hard as an entrepreneur to get to the level that you're at, Justin. So
Yeah,
I appreciate
definitely.
you showing behind the scenes how much you worked it within your company. You didn't pay yourself. You faked it until you made it. You
Hmm.
volunteered your time because you had to. You had to get your name out there. And now you probably don't do as much of that. Maybe you do a little bit here and there, but in the beginning, you take what you can get.
Yeah, very little, of course, and then, but again, like you pay yourself differently. And I mean, it was very hard. I mean, in terms financially speaking, it was very challenging, right? Because I was also helping my parents out. And at that time, my dad's business had really sort of gone sufficiently under, and there was no savings, there was nothing. So it was like it was challenging. I was living in my parents' house as well. The business was out of my parents' house. It was in the garage and the basement. The living room was covered in equipment. As time went on, there was a period of time where I made a decision to build bars. It cost me about $8,000 I wanted to build custom, beautiful bars. I had this in my head. This is
Mm,
the next thing. I need real bars, not these IKEA bars, not tables. And I was spent all our money. And they shut the hot water off in our house for like 3 months.
that's tough up north.
Yeah, and here I was doing events in these, billionaires' houses, and I would go there and we set the bar up. Beautiful, like going to a house that didn't have hot water, right? And still, people like, is this the right thing to do, and is this the move? Is this what you? But I always knew this is what I wanted to do because even at these promotional events where I wasn't getting paid and I was doing a lot of this stuff for free, I would see the look on their faces when they would come up to this bar and they see the bartender composed and they see the economy of motion in my hands and the way I moved, right? and just the quality of the drink and the taste and the ice and the bar and I would see how they reacted to it, right? And maybe they didn't all call me for an event. And most of the time they didn't. Most of the time they didn't even realize, what I was or what this was or who I was with or, you know, but I would see their reaction. And I knew that people wanted this. You don't need every single person to think it's a good idea. You just need to get your message, your product out there to a broad enough audience that you find more like yourself, because there are so many people like you, even if they're not all in the same room at the same time. And that's how I learned it. And yeah, getting rich quick and the stuff online and make $1 million, total bullshit. Of course not. If you want to make a lot of money and like dependably and like, then go to school and get a finance degree and go work in New York and eat that kind of glass for 6 years and then you can make real money. That's how you definitely want to be rich and make money. You do it that way. You work for somebody else and you get a finance degree and you work or work in tech. And these people all make money, right? If you want to do anything else, there's going to be a lot of risk involved. You have to be okay with that.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Justin. I think that you share such an important message. So to anyone listening, if you're a student, if you're a parent, if you're an adult, there is hope. There are different pathways. And, our neurons work differently than neurotypicals. So choose the pathway that works for you. And Justin, if people want to find you, where can they hire you? Where can they find you?
Best way to get in touch with us is either through our website, which is thecupbearer.com, or Instagram, which is the_cup_bearer. We reply to both right away. And if you are curious about the business and what it is we do, I highly recommend that you check out our Instagram page. We have a large following, almost 80,000 followers and hundreds of amazing photos and videos of our events. And you can see for yourself in action what it is that we do. And, it's a lot of fun. So, and if you're local to the East Coast or, the New York area, you can come and see us in person at the Greenwich Polo Club. We are the official beverage provider and bar service of the Greenwich Polo Club in Connecticut. I'm personally at almost every match. So if you want, come down. We'll take care of you. All right.
Someone who's dedicated to his company. And for those of you who aren't able to see how it's spelled out, it's Bearer. So like a bear in the woods, the cup bearer, not bearer, bearer.
No, bearer. Brooke, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. And I hope your viewers and listeners are to get something out of it. So thank you.
I'm sure they will. Thanks, Justin. Thanks for listening to this episode of Successful with ADHD. I hope it helps you on your journey. And if you need any additional support for you or a loved one with ADHD, feel free to reach out to us at coachingwithbrooke.com and all social media platforms at Coaching with Brooke. And remember, it's Brooke with an E. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.